Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We have another episode. This one's Subtracting Fractions. This is video 2 of 3. This video is actually one of the harder videos that we're going to do, and subtracting fractions, this type of thing, is the hardest that we're going to talk about in fractions. So make sure you pay attention to this one. Make sure you've got it down 100%. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit harder. Alright, your objective for today is, as a student, you should be able to accurately subtract a fraction from a whole number. So this is where it's going to get tricky. Okay, you need to make sure that you go ahead and put these things on your graphic organizer. And hopefully my wonderful computer will allow me to get moving. There we go. Alright, so you'll need graphic organizer number 5. This is side 2. Alright, so this is side 2. You just did side 1 on the last video. This is side 2. Make sure when you take your pictures you got this one right. Alright, so here we go. We need to subtract a fraction from a whole number, and this is where it gets tricky, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to jump right in. Alright, like I told you before, the first thing I always want to do is I would always love to write them straight up and down. I'd like to see that on yours as well. So we're going to go ahead and say 13 minus 12 over 40. Okay, and we got to be careful because it's not just 12 over 30. That 13 is a whole number. So we have to put our 12 over 40 on the side where we would put our fractions, okay? And we don't have a whole number. We could say it's 0 if you want, okay? But you don't have to, but we can say it's there. All right, now that 13, what are we going to do with it? Well, you see down here that we have already a denominator. So we might as well just make that our common denominator because why bother doing a bunch of extra work? So let's make it 40. So if we put this over 40, how many 40s do we have? Well, there was nothing over here. So it's nothing. It's just 0. Alright, so that's what we have so far. So now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and say 0 40ths minus 12 40ths. Well, 0 minus 12 you can't do. So what do? Well, this is where you have to borrow, and this is where you have to be very careful. So you're going to borrow from this 13, and it's going to become a 12. And this numerator is not going to be 10. Make sure you understand that. It's not 10. What you simply do is you add the numerator and the denominator together, and that becomes your new numerator. So 0 plus 40 is 40. Now, why does that work? Well, if you remember correctly, you split this candy bar into 40 pieces. So if you take a whole candy bar and unwrap it, you're going to get 40 new pieces. That's awesome, man. Or it could be like a bag of Skittles. You open that bag of Skittles and there's 40 Skittles in it. Like, that's awesome. Okay, there's 40 of them. That's sweet. All right, so all we did basically is we borrowed from it, just like we do when we subtract regular. So we borrowed. We just have to make sure we borrow the right amount. And we now have 40 minus 12. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and subtract the fractions. 40 minus 12 gives us 28, and our denominators stay the same, over 40. And then we subtract our whole numbers, which are 12 and 0. Okay, and 12 minus 0 is 12. Now, that could be your answer, except for you got to make sure it's simplified. And 28 40ths is not simplified. Okay, so what goes into both of them? Well, 4 does, okay? You could put that in the cake. You could use the birthday cake. You could say 28 and 40, and maybe you find out it's 2 and get 14 over 20 and go, oh man, there's another 2, so let's do that again. It'd be 7 over 10. Well, that's your answer. That's 7/10. All right, but you got to remember your whole number. So your total answer is 12 and 7/10. And ladies and gentlemen, that's your first example. We have 3 more for you to get this right. All right, moving on. Okay, we're going to go a little bit faster again. So remember, we have a whole number, 12, and then we have a fraction. So we're going to subtract 11 over 15, and we didn't have anything there, so let's say it's 0. Okay, and 12. What are we going to do? Well, remember, we want to use this same denominator down here at the bottom, so we're going to say it's over 15, and how many did we have? Well, there's nothing here, man, so it's just 0. So, 0 minus 11 you cannot do, so you need to borrow. So we're going to go ahead and borrow from that 12. That 12 we borrow 1, it becomes 11. And what do we do over here? Well, remember, we simply add these two numbers together. That's the trick. 0 plus 15 gives us 15. Okay, so now we can go ahead and subtract. 15 minus 11 is 4 15ths, and 11 minus 0 is 11. And 4 15ths is simplified. You can check it by using the cake, but it's good. Let's move on. That's example 2. Move on to number 3. Alright, we have 6 minus 9 50ths. Remember, we're going to line it up. Whole number. And 19 50ths, there's no whole number, so let's just say it's 0. So we're going to subtract. And we're subtracting 19 50ths. 5/8. Alright, what do we do at the top? Well, remember there's 0, and we want to use this same denominator so we don't have to restart, correct? Alright, then we're going to go ahead and subtract. Well, we can't do 0 minus 19, so what do? Well, that's when we borrow again from that 6. 6 becomes a 5, and the 0, well, remember what we do is we add it. So instead of 0, it's going to be 50. Alright, 50 minus 19, well, that gives us 31. Alright, over 50. And we have to remember about our whole numbers. 5 minus 0 is 5. 31/50ths, that's actually simplified. Okay, I know that because 31 is a prime number and it doesn't go into 50. So I know that you probably didn't, but hey, what can I say? You can always check it in the birthday cake. If you can't figure it out, it's probably done. Let's move on. We have example number 4. This is the last example I'm going to show you, so make sure you know exactly what you're doing. We're going to say 2. Remember, we're going to line these up, but you can't line up a fraction without being a fraction. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to say this is 4/8 on the side. And how many 4/8 do we have? Well, we had 0. Remember, we want to use this 8 as our denominator. And how many do we have right now? Well, we've got 0. So what do? Well, we can't do 0 minus 4 because it's just not possible. So we're going to go ahead and borrow from the 2. The 2 becomes a 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to add these two numbers. 0 plus 8 is 8. And that gives us our borrowing. Now we can do 8 minus 4, which gives us 4/8, and 1 minus 0 is 1. Unfortunately, there's a problem, and if you look closely, you'll see it right away. 4/8 is not going to work. So what do we do with it? Well, very simple. We need to divide them. We can divide them both by 4. So that would be 1, and 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So we have 1 1/2. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, this time you should be able to accurately subtract a fraction from a whole number. We've done 4 examples. You're going to do these next 3 on your own, so go ahead and pause the video and we'll come back. Alright, I'm back. I'm going to move fast. Yes, I am. We're going to move really fast. I'm going to show you exactly what it should have looked like. Here you go. Check yours. We should have 2 minus 0 and 5/16. This should have been 16th. 0. Borrow from the 2. It's a 1. 16 plus 0 is 16. 16 minus 5 is 11 over 16. 1 minus 0 is 1. That should have been your answer, ladies and gentlemen. That was the number 1. Here we go. Number 2. We have 4 minus 17 over 18, and remember that's a 0 because we don't have any there. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to put this over 18. How many do we have? Right now we have 0. What do we need to do? Well, we need to borrow from the 4. It becomes a 3 because we can't do 0 minus 17. So we go ahead and add these two together. That means 0 plus 18 is 17. 18. I apologize. Can't add today for some reason. 18 minus 17 is 1/18, and 3 minus 0 is 3. Alright, moving on. Oh, one more. I'm sorry, got to pull it back up. That's okay. Let's see if we can do this. Yes, resume. Look at that. Perfect. We're going to go ahead and resume. We have 4 minus 0 and 7/12. We want to go ahead and use the 12 as our denominator. We have 0 of them. 0 minus 7 you can't do, so we're going to borrow from the 4. It becomes a 3. We're going to go ahead and add the 0 plus 12, which is 12. 12 minus 7 is 5 over 12, and 3 minus 0 is 3. And guess what? Those are already simplified. Your answer is 3 and 5/12. Hopefully you got that. Ladies and gentlemen, be very careful that when you do this right here, okay, when you have a mixed number there or a fraction, it's not always going to be a 0. Sometimes we need to borrow just because we need to borrow. Alright, so that's why we need to make sure we know that we add that numerator and the denominator. Okay? Your task right now is to do these 4 on your exit ticket. Make sure I can see it when you scan it in by taking your picture. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your video on how to accurately subtract a fraction from a whole number. I hope you have it. If you need some help, holler, but I'm out. Later.